Shalom. Okay, this is one of the videos on Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, and what we're going to be looking at now are the last two questions to think about. Let me tell you what's behind these some of these questions to think about. This is we're going to be covering questions number 3 and 4. Questions 1 and 2 we just covered. Hopefully you came up with some good and exciting answers about them. I hope so, at least. And what we're going to be focusing on now is question number 3. Okay, in order to really understand question number 3, we have to understand something about question number 5. Okay, generally. And I say this in a general sense, and this is where my question really stems from. Mitzvahs don't tend to repeat themselves. We don't tend to have mitzvahs that are repetitious, where I'm already doing something, and now I'm commanded to do it again. I don't find that there's a mitzvah to blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, and then I don't find, at the same time, I don't see another mitzvah that on the first day of Tishrei, which is Rosh Hashanah for those not following or familiar so much, to blow the shofar. That would seem to be repetitive, right? I don't find that I'm supposed to take my lulav every day, and on Sukkot I should take my lulav. Again, it would be repetitive. If we had a special mitzvah to pray on Pesach, right? If there was a mitzvah, make sure you daven Shachar on Pesach, that would be nonsensical. It would seem to be repetitive for absolutely no purpose, and therefore nonsensical, because I have a mitzvah to pray every day. I have a command to daven Shachar every day. So if you're going to tell me there's a mitzvah, even though there's a mitzvah every day, I should still do this on Sukkot, it doesn't seem to make too much sense, right? So that's going to be the basis of our question. Now, if we did find such a phenomena, if we did find where I'm commanded to do something every day, and then at one point in the year, even though I've already been commanded to do it that day, I'm commanded to do it something else, what do you think our possible approach could be to understanding why that is? Why would it be? What would the idea be? Where I would have a mitzvah to do something on that very day, and then a special mitzvah, or a mitzvah to do something every single day, which means I would be doing it on this day, and then a special mitzvah to do it again that day. What would be my approach to understanding that? I would have to say that they're not actually the same things. That although they seem like the same things, they might be the same action, they might be the same, really everything might seem the same, they're not actually the same. There's something different. So let me give you, in our case, what we're talking about. When it comes to the mitzvah of Zechiras Yetzias Mitzrayim, of remembering Zachor as Yom Seischal Me'eretz Mitzrayim, remember the day that we were freed, this pinnacle of Jewish history, where we were freed as Jewish people, and I'm supposed to remember that on the Seder. We learned in source number 5 that when it comes to Kriya Shema, when it comes to the mitzvah of Shema, there are 3 paragraphs to Shema. First paragraph, Yehavta. Second paragraph, V'haya. Third paragraph is Vayomer, known as the Parsha of Tzitzis. Now, it is the Parsha of Tzitzis, right? It is the mitzvah of Tzitzis, and therefore the Rambam had the Havamina. You might have thought that since Tzitzis is not worn at night, are not worn at night, therefore maybe the paragraph of Tzitzis doesn't have to be mentioned at night. That's what I might have thought, right? That's the idea. But in reality, what do we come along and see? That the Rambam had said that even though you might have thought that you don't say this paragraph because it mentions Tzitzis, it has another benefit to it. The paragraph mentions Yetzias Mitzrayim. And we had recalled Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who every single day had finagled his way of mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim in his shir to be Yotzei this mitzvah, which means to say that every single day, both morning and night, we have a mitzvah of mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim. And if every single day we have a mitzvah of mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim, then what's the Torah adding by telling us that come the 14th of Nisan, we have a mitzvah to be mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim? Because picture the scene. The scene is where Erev Shabbos, I'm cleaning. Erev Pesach, excuse me. I'm cleaning my house. I'm getting ready for the Seder. And we're cooking the dishes and making the charosas and making the mar. And we're getting our matzahs ready. And we're setting the table so nice. And then I go to the shul. I daven mincha. There's usually a speech between mincha and Ma'ariv. And then we daven Ma'ariv and we say the Shema. And I get to the third paragraph and I say, Yom Hashem Shalem Mor, Daber al Bnei Yisrael, Marta Le'eva, Sulam Tzitzis. Right? Kafim Bigdeyam, Dorosam, Sulam Tzitzis. Right? And we talk about tzitzis, and then we mention Yisrael Mitzrayim. Right? Tizkor es Yom Seischom Yas Mitzrayim. We say that we should mention Yisrael Mitzrayim. And then, if you would tell me that on the 15th of Nisan I have a mitzvah to remember Yisrael Mitzrayim, I'll tell you I just did that in Ma'ariv. When I said my third paragraph, I just did that in Ma'ariv. So now I'm going to go home and I'm going to do it again. Because there's a mitzvah to do it that night. But if I would forget it's a Seder night, imagine such a thing, we forgot it's a Seder night and I get home and someone says, hey, it's Leil Seder, you're not having a Seder? Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about the Seder. You forgot about the Seder? How are you going to fulfill the mitzvah of Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim? No problem, I just did it in Shul. I'm good to go. I didn't even have to do a Seder. Give me some matzahs, I'll wolf those down, 4 cups of wine, some maror, make a sandwich at the end, have some meal, and then we're done. I don't have to tell the story. I just was maskir Yetzias Mitzrayim. This is a famous question that many, many people have asked. Many, many people have answered. And we're going to try to add ourselves to that list of giving an original and unique answer to this question. Because it boggles the mind. If I've already done the mitzvah of Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim in my Shema, why do I have to do it again? And the answer, obviously, is a methodological answer. We've got to ask ourselves, we've got to take a methodological approach to this and ask ourselves, it's clear that these cannot be the same mitzvahs. And if they can't be the same mitzvahs, then what's the mitzvah on Seder night? How is that any different than what we do in Shema? And again, I'm not looking for, obviously there's much different than at every single night when Shema, I don't sit my family around and I don't go through great detail. So obviously there's a difference, and we could talk about the practical differences, but I'm looking for a conceptual difference. That's what's interesting to me, the conceptual difference. If you could tell me the conceptual difference, I would be mighty proud. Let's go on to the next question, question number 4. What does the Rambam mean when he says, whoever talks in great detail about the Exodus from Egypt on the Seder night is praiseworthy? Look back at source number 1. The end of source number 1 is very strange. Source number 1, if you remember, Parak Zayin Halacha Aleph had told us that there's a mitzvah to tell of the story of the wonders and the miracles that happened. And then the Rambam adds off and he says, V'afal pi she'ein lo ben. Let's say, even though this mitzvah is really centered around telling our children and teaching our children about the story, even if somebody doesn't have a son, or doesn't have a daughter, or doesn't have any children, or they're out of the house, they're not home that year, they're at their in-laws, wherever they might be, you still, as chachamim, even wise people, have to go ahead and tell the story. Afilu chachamim. Now what's the point of that? Chacham know the story. They've told it their whole lives. They're experts. They probably teach it every day. Why on this night do they have to go ahead and retell the story? It's a story that they already know. What's the purpose of that? Right? And then you'll say maybe it's just the Biyoltzis on whatever it is, but then the Rambam says something very strange. Now, truth be told, the Rambam uses this phrase 30 times in 30 different halachos throughout his writings. But this is not the Rambam's line. We're going to read this in the Haggadah, which is written before the Rambam. And in fact, it's based on a Mishnah in Maseches Pesachim. And it says as follows, Kol marbe hariz mishubach. Kol marich b'dvarim, the Rambam says. Whoever goes into greater detail, that person is more praiseworthy. In other words, I could finish this halacha very, very easily. I could fulfill this mitzvah very simply. We were slaves, right? We did this yesterday. We were slaves, we're free, very simple, 5 seconds, we're done with the mitzvah. Right? But if you sit in hours and tell the story and go into great detail, how did it happen at the sea? How did the plagues happen? What did it feel like to be a slave? What was the actual slavery? And you go into great detail, that person is praiseworthy. What's the difference? To answer that question, again, we're going to focus back on methodology. Whenever we have a mitzvah, right, we have the actual action, and then there's a kiyum. Then there's an extra step that you could take to fulfill even more. So when the Rambam says, that there's an extra kiyum, he's telling us there's something about this mitzvah that the longer you go into, the greater the kiyum it is. What is that kiyum? What is it that we're trying to do that night that by telling the story we're going to do even better and it's going to be an extra kiyum? That's the question I'd like you to answer for me. So, again, 3 questions I'd like to have answers to right now. And I'd like you to number them. The first question is, I have to look at my notes, sorry. First question is, if there's a mitzvah to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim every single day, so then what am I doing special on Leil Seder night? Second question, what's the purpose of Chachamim, who already know the story, telling the story again on the Seder night? And third question, what's the idea, what's the kiyum in being marich, in being marbe in the same story? Can't wait to see your answers.